Hello, friends, both old and new. I'm John St. Baptiste, and we are here talking some Tolkien. So sorry to keep you waiting. I actually got stuck in some traffic. Once you start working graveyard shifts, it's something you just don't even think about. Um, it never occurs to you because you don't deal with it. You're leaving when people are at home watching their tellies, getting ready for bed, and then you wake up like when they're getting ready for work. So I am terribly sorry for being so late. So this is part two of uh, episode 4. I guess we'd call it 4.5. And we're going to talk about the Old Forest, which for me personally is one of my favorite chapters. Right now we've got, excuse me, Nancy C out there in the chat, and hopefully a few other people come along. Once again, I apologize so much for being so late. My apologies. So the old road. Well, Nancy, since it looks like it's just you and I here right now, which I'm fine with. Um, did you have any questions about the conspiracy unmasked? Really quickly before I get started. Okay, well, it doesn't look like you have any questions. It was a pretty straightforward chapter. They're pretty observant for men. Half of them you would even call boys, Pippin would be like the Hobbit equivalent of like 16. Merry and uh, Fatty would probably be about 18, 19. It's weird how they age, but as a Hobbit, you aren't considered an adult until you're 33. So we get to the Old Forest. Now, I love the sense of foreboding that it starts out in the previous chapter in the Conspiracy Unmasked, because Fatty is like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. But they do have a really good point. Oh, hi, Santivia. How are you doing today? They do have a really good point in that in that they need to get off the road. Um, you know, but on the same note, it's like cutting through the old forest might not be the safest thing. Without a bit of what might even be divine intervention. Well, hold on one single moment. I want to see what's going on because I have like the rubbish camera that's part of my computer, and then I have a good camera. And unfortunately, it keeps going out and causing problems. I think it has something to do with the jack. So I'm going to have to get that looked at. Let me know if that looks a little better. Oh, hey, OTD, eh? Yeah, guys, tell me if the picture looks better now. Yeah, I think it might be. I hope it's just a wire issue. I hope it's not something about my computer. Nancy, it looks fine for you. I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to go ahead and keep that one to myself. But so yeah, we get to this point, and they're cutting through the fence row, and they go right on into the old forest. And here, I think, at least for me, is the first. I think this chapter needs to happen because I think that the hobbits need to know this is no game. We also learned some history about the Brandy Bucks, which I think is really nice. I love how Tolkien intersperses uh, his stories with um, little bits of history. Just from out of nowhere. This actually, we had talked about on episode 1 when we were talking about the background. Um, we had talked about like the background of Hobbiton and how it was created and so forth. And I just think it's really, really cool how he does that. And then, so we find out that Fatty's going to be sticking around. See, Nancy, I love the Ents in the movies, but this chap, it's quite a whole different spin on that for me. OCDA, you're going to have me on until you pass out? That's fine. I consider that an honor. There's some content creators who I really love and like their work, but sometimes I'll just put on one of their playlists and lay down to sleep. Especially because, like, when I'm sleeping, like, yeah, I pull my curtains, pull my shades, turn out all the lights, but still, it's daytime. So, um, yeah, it's hard to sleep. Hey, Linda Smith, how you doing? Oh, okay. So this reminds me, um, before we really dig into this chapter, my birthday party giveaway was very, very confusing, and that's mostly my fault. Uh, so the actual winner is Linda Smith, and you're getting the Tolkien collection. But also, Juanita won something, and Tad won something, and it got really confusing, and I want to make sure that everybody actually gets something that they would enjoy. So Juanita said, "Give my prize to Santivia." So Santivia, hold on one second. I'll go ahead and show you what your prize is. This is a copy of Tolkien's Ring by David Day. It's really cool. It gives a lot of background to the mythology behind the ring in general and Tolkien's work, and also all the artworks done by Alan Lee. So I hope you're looking forward to that. Hey, I was drinking for like 5 hours that day. So, well, even more than that, but on air. So you've got to forgive me a little bit, but I hope you enjoy that. I think it's a really cool piece of work. Oh, Bobby Catalano's out there. Hey, Bobby, how you doing? So, Santevia, I hope that's a good prize for you. I hope you like it. Oh, you're welcome. Either that, or if you want, I'll call you up and I'll sing the Misty Mountain Hop to you, whichever one you prefer. But yeah, it's really cool because right here it starts with a sense of foreboding, and I think that this chapter is so necessary because it's a, in a way, a gateway to the hobbits. They start learning exactly what they're dealing with. I think without this chapter, they wouldn't be ready for the next thing they have to deal with. And then it builds and builds. It you know, you throw somebody in the deep end, and a lot of times they can't make it. But if you let them gradually realize just how dangerous things are, uh, then they can learn to deal with it. And we find this out by the end of the story. Um, has everybody here seen the films? I'm pretty sure everybody has, but I just want to double check and make sure that I'm not absolutely ruining something for anybody. Yeah, I hate spoilers. I really, it drives me nuts. I've actually been known to get up and use the men's room when I'm at the movies, at the movie house, or as we always called it, the moving pictures when I was a kid, because that's what my grandma called it. But I really, I hate spoilers so much that I've been doing when preview for a movie I really want to come on, or when I really want to see comes on at the theater, I've actually got up to use the men's room, like, and left the theater just so I don't see that preview. So I want to make sure I'm not spoiling anybody. And Bobby says I can call her up and sing to her for no reason at all. I might do that sometime. But yeah, I just want to make sure everyone's seen the film. Give me one moment. I'll be right back. Son Tivia, you want to sing In Excess together? We might be able to do that. Okay, so everybody's seen the films. It's great. By the way, for those of you just joining us, my apologies. I started out late and I just had to get up. I had stuck in traffic. It's like I was saying earlier. Um, One of those things that you just quit thinking about when you work the graveyard shift, because when you're traveling, you normally never have to deal with that. And yeah, so I got stuck in traffic and wanted to get this stream started as quickly as possible, and I realized that I really needed to attend to a natural function. So my apologies. Weirwood will kill any spoilers. Nice. Okay, so by the end of this entire story, that the hobbits are very brave, and they deal with some pretty major shit. And I think the reason this chapter is so important is because it starts off. It's don't get me wrong, Old Man Willow, like, still the concept terrifies me. Uh, just like an angry tree, if you really want to break it down, justifiably angry tree. But he's become just like bitter and hateful. I think it really says a lot about human nature, uh, because you can. A lot of people think that Tolkien doesn't have a real human element, for lack of a better term, in a lot of his writing, and I think that's completely wrong. And I think one of the early proofs of that is Old Man Willow, because he if bad things happen to you, such as, you know, gradually watching your home be destroyed, which, I think it was Nancy asked, are Fangorn in the Old Forest the same? Well, at one point in time, they were. At one point in time, it says at one point in time, a squirrel could travel from the Anduin to the Branduin without ever touching the ground long ago. So it was one huge forest that connected pretty much everything south of the Misty Mountains. And, gradually watching that go away. And I think that it's a Nancy T. Yeah, whoa, right, exactly. I mean, we're talking the distance from I guess you'd say probably the distance from Lake Erie to Florida. OTDA says, I have the book. I don't know how many there are, but the one I have is huge with everything in it. I don't know if they're separate books or all one naturally because it's so big. Okay, so the way the book is set up, it's in 6 books. And by books, they're like 10 chapter sections. That's how Tolkien originally wanted it published. But we're talking post-war England, and it was just financially unfeasible. It would have cost so much that it would have been prohibitive to be able to sell. So they split it into 3 different books. You might have the 1 book version like I do, or you might have the 3 book version, like Linda's Prize. Mother Maroon, welcome. You paid off the movers. Santivia, Tolkien basically was writing light horror, capitalizing on that element of fear people have of the forest and the woods. Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I wouldn't even call it light horror. I mean, it's, to me, 2 of the most frightening moments in the entire work are the first time the hobbits come across the Nazgul and the old forest with Old Man Willow. I think the Tolkien was such a master with his grammar and his especially his description. I mean, we'll be honest, his dialogue at times I think is slightly wanting, but that's just because of the style in which he writes is very much more formal than the way we would speak in dialogue quite often. But I think the reason that those 2 scenes, for me at least, were so terrifying when I was younger, first time I read this, Um, it is I think for me the reason is because subconsciously, other characters who one comes across in this tale, like the elves and the men and the dwarves uh, who you come across in the story, a lot of them are really badass. And so I think something like that's a little less terrifying, where these are, just hobbits. And um, I think it's really well told from their point of view. Mother Ryan says the Nazgul are elemental in the movie. I think the movie you think did them well. Yeah, I agree. I I uh, I think they um, I think the Nazgul in the film were done extremely well. Uh, yeah, definitely. But as we're going through the forest, it gets slightly more and more and more foreboding. Um, and the hobbits feel like something's leading them down. It once again, it goes back to the way that this chapter is written. Uh, they're being drawn somewhere, and they can tell, but they can't really do much about it. You think about that, that would be such an uncomfortable, to say the least, situation to deal with. But they get down to the river, and then they're tired. And so they lay down to relax, falling asleep even though it's the middle of the day. And they're like, we shouldn't be tired. And they're next to a large willow tree. And this willow tree just happens to be Old Man Willow, who's a very angry, vengeful, hateful embodiment of the forest. And I think that goes back to what I was saying. Like, one of my favorite quotes. Um, Not a huge fan of some other things he said, but one of my favorite quotes is James Dobson, and he said, "I believe that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you deal with it." And I think that's really poignantly reflected in um, Old Man Willow, because especially when contrasted with the Anslater, because you could let just like this anger and hate and wrath and bitterness take over you, or you could resign yourself and try and do what you can with what you have, even if a lot of what you have has been taken away. And so, yeah, Old Man Willow, he grabs the hobbits and traps them. And then we meet my favorite character from this book, who I am so happy was not in the film, because I think that Tom Bombadil is an awesome character. I actually have some theories about him that maybe I'll do a separate video because it would be a little spoiler heavy. But I think Tom Bombadil would have worked horribly on the screen. I think it would have been Jar Jar Binks of uh, the Lord of the Rings if he had been in the film. I for those of you who've seen The Hobbit, I absolutely hate what they did with Radagast. I think I Peter Jackson, I think, is 90% a great actor and then 10% a rubbish actor or director. 10% rubbish, and he uses at least what for me personally is just very rubbish slapstick comedy that doesn't have its place in Tolkien's work. We'll go into that some other time if you'd like. But they meet Tom, and Tom, I love the fact that Tom knows the song to uh, calm old man Willie down. I love the fact that it's a song. Does anybody have any questions right now? At this point? Because we're about to meet one of my other favorite characters from the entire uh, Tolkien anthology. But I'd like to answer any questions you have at the moment. Linda Smith, well, Tolkien never called himself conservationist. It comes across in his writing. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. You have to remember when well, he was born in South Africa, but once he moved to England, I think he was 5, I want to say. Uh, at first, he lived in the countryside before his mother passed. And he gradually watched this area that he loved that was idyllic become industrialized. And so it really brought home this thing to him, and I think it definitely reflects a lot in his work. Another thing that reflects a lot in his work, a common theme in Tolkien's work is death, because so many people who were so important to him died. I mean, his father died right after his mother and him moved to England, and then his mother died of diabetic complications when he was like 11 or 12. And then he went to school and then went off to the war, and all of his close friends died, with save one. kind of reminds Nancy of Garth Greenhand from Song of Ice and Fire. Tom Bombadil? I've never thought about that. Possibly Garth Greenhands is based on him. But so Tom comes and he knows the song for Old Man Willow. He knows the song that'll calm him down, and it's very important. I'm not going to give any spoilers to anybody, but one thing to pay extremely close attention to in this book is songs, and that there's a certain power behind songs and behind music. Yeah, Santivia, that's actually a really good way to say that. Music to calm the ticked off tree. But yeah, I mean, there's songs all throughout this book, and I do think you should definitely pay attention to them. Plus, a lot of them are quite lyrically well written. I mean, you never get to hear the music, but it's kind of more fun that way because you can make it up in your head. So Tom gets him out, and they're like, "What the hell? Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Tom Bombadil." And yeah, he's a very enigmatic character, to say the least. But he leads them on to his house. And we meet Goldberry. Now, so you get this, like, big old. There must be something pretty special about him because, like, she's portrayed as absolutely just this amazing, beautiful, charming nymph, for lack of a better term. And Tom's like this, you know, old dude with a beard who hops around singing goofy songs in his yellow boots. So there must be something special going on there. And I think it's absolutely charming. Uh, and what the book does here, I think, is so great because you've had this looming sense of terror growing and growing and growing. And then you have this moment of peace in a beautiful, idyllic place. And I think that's really great. So that gets us to the end of the Old Forest. Does anybody have any thoughts, ideas, comments, questions that they would like to share? Mother Rowan would take Gandalf over Tom Bombadil. That's cool. Mother Rowan Tolkien was romantic while GRM's toward the end of the birthday party the other day. AU Pack Mule, Justin Thomas, and myself were talking about that. Um, this is no disparagement to George R. R. Martin, but his trauma was secondhand at most, whereas Tolkien's was firsthand. And I think Justin had a really good point that Tolkien wrote because that was his way to deal with the trauma that he had been through. Whereas, and the last thing he wanted to do was go into nitty gritty detail about people dying, people getting killed, things like that. Plus, their writing style is just so phenomenally different. Hey, Mandolin. Mandolin523's joined us toward the end here, but hey, it's good to see you. If you can, catch up back in the watch through. Actually, anybody who's watching afterwards, welcome. Thank you so much for coming out. If you have the time, please go down there, like, share, and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. And please share this with anyone else who is into Tolkien or would like to learn more, because that's one of my big things that I love about this channel is bringing disparate people together and talking about our common interests. But yeah, so does anybody have any questions about the Old Forest itself, or Old Man Willow, or Tom Bombadil, or Frodo making a plunk when he falls into the river? Also, I think I should have brought this up before, but I think it's extremely interesting that the only of the hobbits who thought something weird was going on with Sam. So anyone who says that, Sam's dumb comic relief, which I unfortunately, I think his character was made in Ralph Bakshi's film. This is my one complaint about Ralph Bakshi's film. Sam was the only one who figured out that something weird was going on with Old Man Willow, that he was casting his charm on them and putting them to sleep. Yeah, Linda, so do I. I have a lot of ideas about who or what Tom Bombadil represents, and I'd love to do a live stream about that. But I think I would want to do that separately, because uh, a lot of theories that people have are really spoilery, and I would want that to be a separate stream with maybe a few other people, just to address that with where somebody can, beware, here there be monsters about watching it. Oh, Madeline, you're tired. Yeah, I'm tired. This is the middle of the night for me. I'm actually going right back to bed as soon as we get finished here. Oh, Mandy, you had COVID. Oh my gosh. Okay, but you're all better now. One moment. home. It's okay now. About a month ago, not so much. I'm glad you're doing okay. Nancy, you're like Jon Snow and Tom Bombadil. You know nothing. Well, like I said, it to have a real discussion about him would take an entirely separate stream, and I would want to make it. You know, I think there are uh, a few spoiler things, just because of the amount of legendary knowledge that I have. But I would like Nancy. What are your theories on who Tom Bombadil is? Mother Royne. Yeah, we'll be getting into that in the next chapter. Slanty Maith. Understood her to be the guy all people came from. Interesting. Tune in next week, and we'll talk about that. When Mother Royne says, to me, Tom is ageless. He's the male. We'll get, as I said, that's things along those lines are more discussed in the next chapter. So I think that's the best place to do so, because I am trying to take the story chapter by chapter as much as possible. Just because I think it makes a much more interesting way to study it. I mean, oh no, you don't need to apologize, Mother Royne. It's. I just think it's more intriguing for people going in, and if somebody's never read the book before, then they can take and just have these small sections without, you know, having to know too much. Okay, so it seems like we've pretty well discussed Tom, at least up to this point in the story, and we'll be learning a lot more about him next week, because the name of the chapter is In the House of Tom Bombadil. And then Fog on the Barrow Downs. Oh, looks like my camera is giving me issues again. Okay, yeah, I definitely need to get that looked at. I think it's the camera itself. So my apologies there, everybody. Most unprofessional channel in the internet. My apologies. So yeah, next week we'll be covering In the House of Tom Bombadil and The Fog on the Barrow Downs. which is a really cool chapter. And also, if we've only seen the films, it's going to be completely new, and it might get you a little gobsmacked. But so on that note, I'm going to let you all go. I should have a music video out on Tuesday, which I'm pretty excited about. It's going to be a new history music video instead of just a regular playlist video. I like doing both. This one I'm pretty excited about, and it's pretty close to heart, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. And it should be out on Tuesday. If it's not, don't yell at me. It'll be up on Wednesday. Let's see. And of course, we're doing Talking Tolkien. It's normally every Friday at 6 p.m. If anybody wants to guest and come talk on an episode, please let me know, because I enjoy having somebody to speak with while we break down a chapter and discuss it. So hit me up. You look down in the description. All my personal social media stuff is on there, and hit me up if you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Mandy, I'm glad you're okay. I'm really glad you're okay. It makes me happy. I was, when I found that out just now, it worried me quite a bit. So I'm glad you're all right. It's good. It's good to hear you're doing okay. So that being said, yeah, Mother Rowing the Silmarillion is hard. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Try and get a little more sleep before I go into work. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a great afternoon and a great week. And I will see you soon. In the meantime, PLUR, be excellent to one another, party on, and keep sailing west.